Amina Diallo was a strong, determined and respected woman. Of Senegalese origin, she immigrated to France more than 15 years ago, leaving behind Dakar, its lively streets and the memories of a childhood lulled by the warmth of the sun and the wisdom of the elders. In France, she had carved her path in stone, establishing herself as a brilliant lawyer specializing in civil rights. His name resounded in the courts, a symbol of courage in the face of injustice. Every day, she defended lives shattered by discrimination, denounced abuses of power, and advocated for equality with rare eloquence. She was not just a lawyer, she was a voice for the voiceless, a light in the darkness of injustice. But that evening, Amina was not in court. There was no black robe, no courtroom, no judges to listen to him. That evening, she was a vulnerable woman, short of breath, her hand clenched on her stomach, doubled over by dull, unbearable pain. Each step was torture, a struggle against a body that seemed to betray his inner strength. At her side, Fatou, her childhood friend, supported her as best she could. Their faces, once beaming during lively discussions over steaming teas, were now tense with worry.
Hold on, Amina.
It's going to be okay, Fatou whispered, her voice trembling but determined. The lobby of the private clinic was cold and impersonal, bathed in harsh white light. The walls, dazzling white, seemed to reflect the indifference that reigned there. Patients, seated in hard plastic chairs, cast furtive glances, some curious, others visibly uncomfortable with the scene unfolding before them. Arriving at reception, Fatou slammed the counter urgently, her hand slamming against the varnished wood. My friend is in a lot of pain. She needs to see a doctor right away. She cried, her voice tinged with anguish. Behind the counter, the receptionist, a young blonde woman with a face frozen in an expression of weariness, barely looked up from her screen. His gaze shifted to Amina, indifferent, almost annoyed. Do you have a mutual insurance card? She asked in a mechanical tone. Fatou clenched her fists. We'll give it to you later. Find us a doctor, she exclaimed, her voice rising a notch. The receptionist sighed, as if the emergency of a lifetime was just a hindrance in her well-oiled routine. She limply picked up her phone to call someone. A few moments later, a man in a white coat appeared.
Dr. Moreau.
Tall, thin, with angular features and an icy gaze. He advanced with the assurance of those who believe their status is beyond any questioning. Known for his medical skills, he was also infamous among the staff for his arrogance and haughty attitude towards some patients. He approached with a slow step, observing Amina with a quick and contemptuous look. What is going on here? He asked in a dry voice. My friend is in pain, she has terrible abdominal pain. Fatou replied, her eyes pleading for quick help. The doctor glanced quickly at Amina, as if assessing not her state of health, but her legitimacy to be there. He frowned, crossing his arms, his face closing in an expression of irritation. Have you made an appointment? Fatou remained stunned for a moment. It's an emergency. Look at her, she can't even stand up anymore, she cried. Amina, with a pale face, was sweating profusely. His legs trembled under his own weight. Moreau sighed, visibly annoyed, and replied in a condescending tone. We are a private clinic, we have our procedures. If she doesn't have a medical record here, she has to go to the emergency room of the public hospital. We are not here to manage every situation. A heavy silence settled. Amina, despite the pain that radiated throughout her body, felt a dull anger rising within her. It wasn't just a refusal. It was contempt, a look that said, "You don't belong here." She looked up, her features marked with pain but her gaze still proud. You refuse to treat me because I'm black, she whispered, her voice weak but full of dignity. Moreau shrugged, a smirk touching his lips.
Don't twist my words, ma'am.
But we have our usual patients, and you are not one of them.
If you want a consultation, make an appointment.
Rage exploded in Fatou. Is this a joke? You let a woman suffer just because she is not a regular customer. She yelled, her voice echoing through the hall. The other patients began to whisper, some discreetly taking out their phones. Amina, staggering, held on to the counter to avoid falling. The pain was becoming unbearable, a burning wave washing over her. "Please. I need help," she whispered, before her legs gave way beneath her. She collapsed heavily to the floor, her head lightly hitting the cold tiles. Fatou screamed his name, throwing herself on her knees beside him, crying. But Moreau did not move. He just rolled his eyes before saying coldly,
"Call an ambulance."
"Let her be taken elsewhere." The waiting room was plunged into a heavy silence, broken only by Fatou's muffled moans and the shocked murmurs of the patients. Some exchanged indignant glances, others discreetly filmed the scene with their phones, capturing Dr. Moreau's cruel indifference to Amina's pain. A nurse, visibly uncomfortable, approached timidly to intervene, but Moreau raised his hand with a dry, authoritarian gesture. "Let's call an ambulance to take her somewhere else," he ordered coldly, ignoring Amina's limp body at his feet. Just then, the glass door to the clinic burst open, slamming against the wall. A man in a dark suit entered, his eyes filled with panic and anger. It was Dr. Idris Touray, world-renowned surgeon, expert in emergency medicine, respected in the highest medical circles, and husband of Amina. Behind him, two fellow doctors, visibly alerted by Fatou, followed closely. Idris scanned the room, his dark eyes desperately searching for the one he loved. "Where is she?" he called out in a powerful voice, which resonated like a clap of thunder in the frozen room. Fatou, in tears, raised her trembling hand towards Amina, lying on the cold ground. Idris rushed to his knees beside her, his normally impassive face distorted by anguish. He checked her pulse, brushing against her sweaty skin, observing her shallow breathing. His brow furrowed with worry. What happened? Why didn't anyone take care of it? He roared, standing up abruptly, his gaze glaring at the medical staff. Moreau stepped forward, trying to maintain his authority, although his voice betrayed a slight hesitation. "We have our protocols. She is not a patient here, and we judged that she should go to the emergency room of the public hospital." Idris remained silent for a short moment, his gaze fixed on the man in front of him. Then he approached slowly, his face marked by icy anger. "You judged," he repeated, his voice dropping a pitch, but each word sounding like a threat. "You let my wife suffer without doing anything, while you judged whether she deserved to be treated." A heavy silence fell over the room. All eyes were turned away from Moreau, who had become as pale as a sheet. The arrogance had left his face, replaced by a dull fear. He had just understood who this man was. Dr. Idris Touray, influential member of the Council of the Order of Physicians, international speaker, respected surgeon, and his hierarchical superior on several medical committees. "I didn't know she was your wife," Moreau stammered, unable to meet Idris's gaze.
A bitter smile distorted Idris' lips.
He shook his head in disbelief. "And if she wasn't, you would have left her to die here?" His voice was low, but each word hit like a punch. "So it's not a protocol problem. It's a problem of humanity. Or rather, the absence of humanity." He turned to the nurses, some of whom lowered their heads in shame. "Take her to the examination room immediately. I am personally taking charge of his case." This time, no one dared to argue. The staff were busy, carefully lifting Amina to take her to the emergency room. Fatou, still upset, followed closely. Idris remained motionless for a few seconds, staring at Moreau with contempt.
"You almost killed my wife."
"But you destroyed your career." The matter did not end there. A young man in the waiting room, outraged by the injustice he had witnessed, posted video of the incident on social media with the caption, "Refusal of care in a private clinic, when medical racism costs lives." Within hours, the video went viral. Thousands of comments poured in, denouncing the inhumane treatment reserved for Amina. The hashtags #JusticeForAmina and #MedicalRacism flooded Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. The next morning, the newspapers headlined, "Scandal in a private clinic. a lawyer in danger of death ignored by a racist doctor. Medical racism in the spotlight. The Council of the Order of Physicians opened an immediate investigation. Faced with media pressure and a wave of national indignation, Moreau was suspended from his functions, pending disciplinary sanctions. Several associations fighting against medical discrimination became civil parties. Meanwhile, Amina, thanks to the rapid care provided by Idris and his team, slowly recovered. But the emotional wound remained deep. Refusing to remain silent, she decided to file a complaint against the clinic and Dr. Moreau. His story became a symbol of the fight against medical discrimination. A few weeks later, during a press conference organized by civil rights associations, Idris spoke in front of a crowd of journalists. "This is not an isolated case," he declared in a firm voice. "Too many minority patients experience medical discrimination, often at the risk of their lives. Today she is my wife.
Tomorrow it could be yours.
It's time to change that." Amina, standing next to him, slowly walked towards the microphone. Despite the fatigue visible on his face, his eyes shone with determination. "I will defend every victim, as I always have. Because health is a right, not a privilege." His words resonated in the room, and beyond, throughout an entire country. That day, Amina and Idris were not just victims. They became symbols of greater resistance, of a fight for humanity, dignity and equality.
The fight had only just begun.